Washington has had a spate of sex scandals this year, but the John Ensign saga stands out as one of the most troubling. The Nevada senator has admitted having an affair with his former campaign treasurer, Cindy Hampton. She is married to Doug Hampton, one of Ensign's top Senate aides before he left that job. Doug Hampton later became a lobbyist who traded on his ties with the Republican lawmaker. But Hampton remains very angry at his former boss, and in an interview airing tomorrow night on Nightline, he says Senator Ensign continued the affair even after claiming it was over.
He's still sleeping with your wife, you think?
Yeah, that's hard to hear. Yeah, I think he's absolutely at this time pursuing her. He's absolutely fixated on Cindy.
I spoke earlier to Cynthia McFadden from New York. She, of course, the co-host of ABC's Nightline, who reported the Ensign story. Cynthia McFadden, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
John Ensign admitted having this affair with a former aide back in June. I know there are still ethical questions, but why dredge all this up now?
You know, I think the key question is, we know he admitted the affair, but the question is, was there more than an affair? Was there, in fact, some kind of ethical or even legal violations associated with this affair? And so we decided it was time to dig a little deeper and have the opportunity to do that.
But this is, at heart, a sex scandal story that's good for ratings, right?
Boy, I think it is at heart a question of whether there was an abuse of power. It is at heart a question of whether or not a sitting United States senator knowingly violated ethics laws, knowingly violated tax laws. That's what it's a question of, I think, Howie.
Okay.
Now, is there a sex case to go around it? Yes, there is. But I don't really think that's the selling point. I think the real question here is it's a political story, and I hope that after you've seen it on Monday night, you'll agree with me there's a very intriguing political tale here.
Now, this story that you've reported is basically a single-source story. I mean, Doug Hampton, who you interview extensively, he's angry. He's angry that John Ensign slept with his wife. He's angry that John Ensign fired him and his wife. Should you, as a journalist, be very wary of what he says, because clearly he is out to get John Ensign?
Absolutely, we should be wary. And there are a lot of supporting documents around what Doug Hampton has to say, and the documents have been very important to our reporting of the story. You know, I have to say that Doug Hampton certainly has an axe to grind here. He was John Ensign's chief of staff. John Ensign had an affair with his wife. John Ensign fired both of them. Yeah, he has a big axe to grind. So as a journalist, you have to be super conservative and very careful about following the trail.
Yeah, and Hampton acknowledges that. He says he thinks Senator Ensign should resign. Now, there was a letter that came out a few months ago that Senator Ensign actually wrote to Cindy Hampton, Doug Hampton's wife, former campaign treasurer for Ensign's campaign, in which he said, I have done wrong, I have sinned, I have betrayed what I believed in. And yet, after he wrote that letter, Doug Hampton is telling you that he believes that the affair actually continued. Is that something that he believes, or is that something that can be proven?
He says that, in fact, John Ensign called his wife, and that he has the telephone records to prove it, called his wife subsequent to mailing that letter and said, disregard the letter, I'm in love with you. And Doug Hampton says that that very weekend, which parenthetically was Valentine's weekend, he confronted John Ensign and said, what's going on? And Ensign said to him, I'm in love with your wife, I'm not going to apologize for it, and we're going to see where this goes.
And of course, it's all the more poignant because the two families were friends for years in the Las Vegas area.
They weren't just friends, Howie. They were super friends. This is a friendship of two families for 20 years. You'll see on Monday night lots of photographs to document the families were close. They called one another brother, Ensign and Hampton. In fact, Ensign recruited Hampton to come work in Washington, despite the fact that Doug Hampton had no political experience. Really because of their common faith, both devout Christians. And Hampton says John Ensign said to him, "I need a brother in Christ to walk with me in the corridors of power," encouraged, by the way, by the C Street Fellowship.
This is, of course, the house that Ensign lived in. Senator Tom Coburn also lived in. But let me move on back to your reporting of the story. We know that Ensign's parents mysteriously, suddenly, abruptly gave the Hampton family $96,000. They said it wasn't hush money. It was just a goodwill gesture. And then Doug Hampton's lawyer asked Senator Ensign for $8 million after Doug and Cindy had lost their jobs.
Actually, $8.5 million,
excuse
but
me,
yes.
I mean to understate
even more. There you go.
Did you ask him whether this was some sort of blackmail?
Indeed, I did. He said that it wasn't. He said that it was simply a question of his lawyer attempting to talk to Senator Ensign's lawyer about severance, about some sort of compensation, some sort of recompense for the fact that both Cindy and Doug Hampton had lost their jobs at this point, since both of them had been employed by Ensign. The $8.5 million figure was rejected, and Doug Hampton claims that Senator Coburn from Oklahoma got involved and attempted to negotiate a $2 million settlement. And that was rejected by Senator Ensign as well. But Doug Hampton says he wasn't threatening anything, that he was asking for good faith.
After both of the couple lost their jobs, Doug Hampton says that Senator Ensign set him up, basically, as a lobbyist. You asked him about that. Let's roll the clip.
So there is no doubt in your mind that John Ensign understood that ethics laws were being broken as well.
There's no doubt in my mind.
This is a serious allegation you're making against a sitting United States senator.
Why would a client hire Doug Hampton if he didn't think that he was going to have access to John Ensign's office? It's the only reason why I would hire him.
There is a federal law that bars former congressional staffers from lobbying anybody in the chamber, let alone their ex-boss, for 1 year. So in asking him about whether or not he thinks John Ensign broke the law with this lobbying business, isn't Doug Hampton also a potential lawbreaker here? Did you press him on that?
Oh, yes, and as you'll see in the broadcast, one of the reasons that Doug Hampton's credibility starts to go up is because Doug Hampton implicates himself in having broken ethics laws while he's trying to implicate John Ensign. He says, look, clearly I was doing what I just signed a document saying that I wasn't supposed to do, which was to lobby the Senate, for which I had just left. Not only the Senate, the very Senate office that I had just left as AA for. So Doug Hampton, in saying that, certainly implicates himself, but he says it's important to him that the truth come out. He claims that John Ensign set him up with clients and then told him to call his AA, and that then, in fact, he was lobbying the senator that he just stepped down as the chief of staff for.
Cynthia,
clear violation of ethics law if, in fact, that's what happened.
I've got about half a minute. Do you have any concern, given how angry, perhaps understandably, Doug Hampton is, that he is using Nightline to pursue a personal grievance?
And you know, journalists are always concerned about being used. I think that our responsibility as journalists is to make sure that we can substantiate the facts to the extent that we can. We've certainly contacted everyone from comment, and you will see what people have to say in regards to Doug Hampton's allegations on Monday night.
Cynthia McFadden, thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Senator Ensign recently told CNN he's confident an investigation will show he complied strictly with all the laws and rules and ethics of the Senate. You can see that Nightline interview tomorrow night, 11:35 Eastern.